Finally, Jupiter Dasha came. And if you remember, Jupiter Dasha was really nice in the D7 because Jupiter here got her married and gave her children. So let's see how Jupiter is doing in the D9. So right away we can see that Jupiter is really beat up. It's debilitated and the ruler of the important 9th house. It also rules the 8th house. It is conjunct the 6th house. It rules the 12th house here. And it also rules Saturn and Rahu. So we might be surprised how was it possible for her to get married at all. And the reason was that Jupiter is here in the 10th house and becomes a manifestor. Any planet in the 10th house in a Varga becomes a manifestor. And so even though Jupiter is debilitated, since he is in the 10th house, is able to manifest a marriage commitment during its dasha. Jupiter, it's definitely not going to be right away in Jupiter. Jupiter is not in great dignity in any of the important Vargas, D1, 7, and 10. In the D9 it is a manifestor, but in a woman's chart the D9 is not of primary importance early in life, and so there was no marriage happening in Jupiter. Jupiter-Saturn followed, and during this time she met the man who would eventually become her husband. Saturn's influence here brought with it a sense of seriousness and responsibility, and she thought that he was dependable and ready to build a life together. And Venus's influence here increased her feelings for him, but Rahu created also doubts and uncertainty, and she felt that she needed more time for making such a big decision. Previously, in Rahu Dasha, she was not at all ready to get married, right? With Rahu in the 1st house, that made it impossible for her to depend on another person. But now here, since Jupiter Dasha started, she had entertained the thought of settling down and having a family. But still, she now needs to wait for the right time or the right Antardasha in Jupiter Dasha. Jupiter, Mercury comes along, and she got engaged to her boyfriend. In the D9 we can see that Mercury manifests the 5th cusp, which is one of the important 9th house factors, which led to this commitment. The 5th house also rules children, and she got engaged because she got pregnant unexpectedly. And we can see here that Mercury is also in the 7th from Karaka and Jupiter, which rules conception. And so after she got pregnant, she took it as her destiny to get married and announced their engagement. And for her, the pregnancy didn't feel like a disruption, it was more like a sign. There was a sense that it was meant to be, and she accepted her fate and stepped into the new chapter of her life with optimism. Now next came Jupiter, Ketu, and Ketu here rules Mercury and basically continues the theme of the previous Jupiter, Mercury. Mercury is here conjunct the 5th cusp, and so Jupiter Ketu was all about managing the baby, which was very stressful actually, because Ketu is here in the 6th house, and Ketu's lord Mercury is here also in a natural enemy sign in Cancer and sleeping, and so this was an emotionally intense period for her. After that came Jupiter Venus. So this was the time when she got married, right? Venus is the karaka of marriage, and it is exalted in the D9. The exalted Venus gave her the strength to rise above all challenges, to really come to that point of wanting to get married. At the same time, Venus here gets flanked by Saturn and Rahu. And so after she got married, she started to question its value. Right? She got doubts and wasn't sure anymore if she actually did the right thing. And this was particularly so during Jupiter, Venus, Rahu, and Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. So these were very difficult periods for her, where she wasn't happy in her marriage, and she even had thoughts of breaking up, so soon after. She got a much better job than her husband and makes a lot more money than him, and so she thought that the marriage, didn't really make her life any better. Jupiter, Venus, Jupiter here, that was an incredibly difficult time for her as well. Jupiter is here debilitated, and she was quite depressed, and she really just wanted to leave. Not even her husband, her child as well. She had really enough. But then luckily Jupiter, Venus, Mercury came after this very, very difficult time here. And Mercury gave her relief. Mercury here is placed in the 5th from Venus, and it's also manifesting here the 5th cusp of both marriage and children. And things luckily got better, and she felt happier about her life again. Jupiter's Sun came next. The Sun is the 10th lord here in the 4th house. The 10th house has to do with status, the 4th house of home, and the Sun here is manifested by Mercury. And so she gradually gets used to her role as a mom and taking care of household duties. This was a necessary stabilizing period for her after a quite challenging previous Jupiter-Venus period that made her really question everything. Jupiter Moon continues kind of the theme of motherhood, staying home and taking care of a child and husband. The Moon is without any serious afflictions, and nothing out of the ordinary happened during this time. Next comes Jupiter Mars, and we have previously seen that Mars is one of the better 9th house factors. It manifests from its own sign, the 9th from Venus. Now Mars here is also in the 7th from the Dara Karaka moon. And as you can remember from the Vajra course, the 7th house factors in the D9 show one's capacity to experience a soulmate relationship and develop true emotional intimacy. And for her, the best time for this is during a Mars period. Right? We can see here that the 7th house has no manifestation. The 7th lord Venus is exalted, but overall it is quite afflicted. The other important 7th house factor is that the 7th from Venus, and that is also afflicted. And so the only factor that's left that can contribute to developing a very deep, intimate relationship is that of the 7th from the Dara Karaka. And so Mars here in the 7th from the Dara Karaka moon is the only promising factor. Mars is here on an angle and in Mula Trikona. It's awake and ready to take action. It has the energy and drive to break through emotional distance and ego barriers and create a more authentic, loving partnership. And so Jupiter Mars really marked a pivotal time for her, where she had the chance to develop a deeper, more intimate bond with her husband. And finally comes Jupiter Rahu. We have seen in the D7 that Jupiter Rahu was a time when she needed more time and space for herself, with Rahu here in the first house. And in the D9, Rahu is conjunct Venus and Saturn, and that points to changes in her role as wife and mother and a redefinition of her responsibilities. Now, Rahu's lord Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn, and Jupiter, of course, also rules the 8th and 9th houses. And so she went through quite some crisis moments where she reassessed the direction and higher meaning of her marriage. As she moved, closer to Saturn Dasha, she found herself pondering on the, foundations of her marriage. She was asking herself what it truly meant to her, where it was headed, and how it supported her greater life's journey.